I'm going to call us back from closed session, and I do have a couple of things to report out from closed session this evening. It is now 6:01 or 6:02. By a vote of 4-0, the board took action to accept the resignation of employee ID number 468, effective February 21st, 2023. Also, in closed session by a vote of 4-0, the board took action to accept the resignation of employee 7442, effective June 2nd, 2023, per agreement. And then finally, when we tabled this last meeting, was Dr. Wright's mid-year review. So we brought it back and we had our discussion in closed session. And I just want to read this for everybody. So, coming in as a new superintendent to BUSD can be challenging, but Dr. Wright took off running and has continued to show great progress learning the ins and outs of our district, oftentimes overcoming obstacles that we didn't anticipate. He's an effective listener who takes time to understand what others are saying. Damon has showed that he's able to set goals and priorities and accomplish them. He's putting systems in place to help support our students, staff, parents, and the greater community. He responds admirably to changing and sometimes challenging situations, always retaining his professional demeanor and positive attitude. Dr. Wright shows commitment to the job and is always looking for improvement and helps others to do the same. He handles conflicts constructively and diplomatically. We are happy to have him and look forward to the future with Dr. Wright leading the way. Here's to continued great success. Thank you so much for all you do. Sincerely, all of us on the board. So thank you. All right. So now we're going to let's just remind you guys that this meeting is recorded for live streaming and archiving on the district YouTube channel. Just make sure all your phones are silenced because there's a bigger group today. Sometimes I forget. So we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have students here from 5th grade that if I could have them just stand up, and you're going to lead us in the pledge today. Is that okay? Okay, stand up. We're all going to stand up. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Ms. Martinez?
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs. Yes. Trustee Moss. And Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we have some awesome students from Matthew Turner Elementary School. They did an amazing program, the 5th grade Wax Museum, and I'm so glad that they're here this evening to be able to share a little bit. We'd like to highlight now more of our student activities on campus, and we're so glad you guys are here. Did you want to say anything on this?
I'm just excited for your presentation this evening, and if we can call up our principal, Mr. Stephen Slater from Matthew Turner Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Wright, and thank you, President Zeta, and our trustees and our cabinet for having us here tonight. Greatly appreciate it. I also want to thank our teachers that are here, our 5th grade teachers that are here in support and put this great program on with the Wax Museum at Matthew Turner. And we also have our student council is here that are going to share a highlight on our STEAM week and STEAM night. So, and really appreciate all the families for making the arrangements and having the kids here tonight. It's a very special evening. So we will kick this off here, and
I just want to say to the parents while you're all out there, I made it stop raining for this evening, so you all could come out and not have to worry about the weather this evening.
And so one thing that we've been really proud about is bringing some of our events, our wonderful family events back in. And we had our STEAM night and STEAM week, something that we did online virtually. And so we had everybody back at the end of January, actually February 3rd. And so we just wanted to share some of that with you. Here it is. All right. And I'm going to call up our outstanding student council leaders, President Michaela Freitas, Vice President Madeline Becker, Secretary Leila Lazada, and Outreach Cora Latorno. If you four can come on up. So you're going to just talk about the STEAM night, how STEAM making STEAM night, how it's successful in your teams, and explain each of the days and the night. You got it.
Hello, I'm Michaela Freitas, and I'm the president of Matthew Turner Elementary School. Today we are going to be talking about STEAM Night and STEAM Week. For science, on STEAM Week, we had an amazing time. We had Lindsay Wildlife come to our school, and there were amazing insects and reptiles. Like there was a lizard and a beetle. I had a very amazing time there, and I'm very thankful that we got to do that.
Want to bring it on the table?
There we go.
Okay.
On the second day of STEAM Week, we had Technology Day. On Technology Day, one of the highlights was the Hackington School of Code in Pleasant Hill came and taught us different languages of code. One of them was Python. We even got to experience it on our own computers. One of our projects was we had to make a car move without touching it. Our materials were magnets, paper, straws, rubber bands, and tape. I had a really fun time at STEAM Night.
Cool. Very cool.
We had Engineering Day also, which at the Solano County, we also had a Solano County Water Assembly. He taught us how to save water while showing us some cool magic tricks. Brickspace also came, and we worked in collaboration to each make parts of the wall of China. Then we put it together in the end to make a beautiful wall out of Legos.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, let's put it back right up here. There you go. Okay.
For Art Day in 4th grade, we had a very fun art project called Testations. Testations is really fun because it's also a mix of math. It uses geometry. Testations is an art where it repeats itself and it looks like it's going left and right. And we also got to do square and circle art and doodle art, where you take any line and you make art out of it. I had a very fun time, and I had On the last day, we had a mathematics day, which is where everyone
did activities that involved math, and we had a fun time. Oh, and we also had an assembly where some of the all the grades went up to on the stage, and they shared some facts about cooperation, and they also did other and they also showed us how to be respectful, and it was really fun.
Cool. Thank you.
You want to talk about C9? Go ahead. Okay.
I remember that we made slime, which was really fun, but I also remember that I had to run to the bathroom because I got a bunch of dye on my hands.
Oh,
I also remember doing tinkering. It was really fun. We made this house for my friend's little sister, and she still uses it as a dollhouse today, but I think it's seen some better days.
oh boy.
She scribbled all over the back too.
Ah.
We also did coding. Which was really fun, but I didn't get to see that part because I was just running around the dark playground. But
Alrighty.
I also remember we painted by using paintbrushes and a few different colors, and we also used Q-tips, and some of us made flowers, and we also did leaves or just scribbled on it, but
Cool.
we had a fun time. On STEAM night, I also remember there was a robotics room, and there was also a room where you just draw a line on a whiteboard, and a small robot would just follow that line and keep going, and then it would turn around, and then it seemed simple, but it was very amusing.
Cool.
And that's all I did on STEAM night.
I also want to give a thank you to Benicia High School, and we also had students from Liberty High School that were there helping us run the stations during our family event, and that was fantastic. They did a great job. So now I'm gonna pass this on to Mrs. Seymour, who's going to introduce a few of the students who are going to do their Wax Museum presentations.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. I'm Julie Seymour, 5th grade teacher at Matthew Turner. And as Mr. Slater said, I'm here to talk about our Wax Museum. Our Wax Museum is a culminating project that we do at the end of our reading unit. And every year there's a different theme. We've had museums of experts as far as scientists and authors and even future careers. This year, the students were able to choose any topic that they just wanted to become an expert in. They learned how to research, they learned how to write a speech, and they then can dress up or have props and posters to help teach about their topic. When they are in their wax museum, they are frozen like a wax statue, and then when their button is pressed, they come to life and they share their speech and teach all about the topic they've been researching. We've had quite a lot of experts in a lot of different categories this year. We had everything from different types of animals, history, sports, video games, and even the paranormal was represented at our wax museum this year. We are so proud of the amazing job these kids did, and we do have a few of them here tonight for you to listen to. First up, we have Henna.
Imagine you were excited for this one holiday you'd been waiting for so long, but the day you'd been waiting for surprised you in the least expected way possible. This event was called Operation Blue Star. Operation Blue Star was an event that happened on June 1st, 1984 through June 6, 1984, when the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, ordered the Indian Army to attack the Golden Temple, the most holiest shrine of the Sikh religion. It wasn't just a regular day when this event took place. It was a holiday where many people were at the Golden Temple to celebrate. But instead, many were killed and ended up as prisoners. For my research, people who experienced Operation Blue Star had their own name for this event, which represented their own thoughts and memories on how they felt of Operation Blue Star. As you can see, Indira Gandhi and the Indian government hurt many, many people. So why would they do such a thing? Well, it was because their own selfish needs of land, resources, and power. Punjab wanted to have their own land, resources, and to partition from India just like Pakistan. Bhindranwale was a big component in this event because he was a leader of a group fighting for what they wanted and deserved. This group was commonly known as the Khalistan Group. Indira Gandhi disliked this plan, so she decided to launch Operation Blue Star to kill Bhindranwale and many other innocent people fighting for their rights. Believe it or not, there were other similar uprisings to how they happened to Operation Blue Star. For example, many black men were killed or forced to leave their jobs by white men because they didn't want men of different race to have equal rights as well. Similar to how Indira Gandhi didn't want Punjab to have their equal rights of land too. So the real question is, will a lot of these uprisings stop if everyone gets the rights they deserve? In conclusion, Operation Blue Star was an unforgivable time in history. You learned what happened in it, to why it happened, to maybe even a solution to other uprisings. But the main reason why I chose to research this topic was to learn more history coming from my background. I wanted to reveal how much of my people had to go through and continue to go through to this day. A lot of people try to hide the truth. For example, the Indian government blocked out all media coverage before and during the attack. I felt the need to research and share this so one day people will realize that they could be helping others fighting for equality, because a lot of these problems are covered with lies and we need to stop believing them.
Sorry, I forgot I was up. Next, Tyler, come on up.
So imagine this. The ball moves back and forth across the net at 100 miles per hour. You're fascinated by this game. You can't keep your eyes off the ball or the players. What is it? It's a game called tennis, an old but popular sport. Over 1 billion people in this world play or watch the sport. Fun fact, the fastest hit serve ever recorded in tennis was 163 miles per hour. Compared to the fastest pitch ever thrown in baseball, which was 105, it shows tennis can be just as fun and as exciting as any other popular sport. But how do you play this game? Well, you need a tennis racket, a tennis ball, a tennis court, and another player. You and the other player both have tennis rackets, and you hit the ball back and forth over the net in the tennis court. Now, if you hit it and your opponent can't get to it, like let's say you hit on the other side and they can't reach it in time, you're in points. The score goes 15, 30, 40, 50. Now, usually the player that gets to 50 points first wins, but in a circumstance of 40 to 40 points, it's called a deuce, where the first player to get 30 more points than their opponent wins. Now, the starting hit of a game is called a serve, where the player throws it up in the air and then slams it down at their opponent with all their might. This is usually the fastest and strongest hit of the game because you can use a lot of power on that hit. But why would you want to play this game? Well, first of all, it could provide health benefits. It could reduce the chance of heart disease by 56%. And both men and women can play. And you can play in any type of weather because there are indoor and outdoor tennis courts. Indoor tennis courts usually cost $40 to $100 an hour because you usually play in them in the rain because you can't do outdoor tennis courts. Outdoor tennis courts are usually free. Some great tennis players include the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena Williams. You probably have heard of them. They're two of the first African American women to demolish the game of tennis. There's also Naomi Osaka, the first Asian tennis player to reach #1 on the leaderboard. And then Roger Federer, who's #1 in tennis for 310 weeks. That's almost 6 years of being #1 in tennis. Now, my point is, tennis is really amazing and fun, and you should try playing it or watching it sometime. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Caitlin.
Hi, I'm a kid that lives in the Dark Ages. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in the Dark Ages? Well, listen up, because I was born in the year 712. That's right, I was born in the middle of the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages started in the year 500 and ended in the year 1000. The Dark Ages started because of the fall of the Roman Empire. The fall of the Roman Empire was when the important Roman people lost their power. And because they lost their power, everything was getting worse. Because everything was getting worse, our soil was getting worse, so we couldn't grow too many crops or food. On a happier note, for fun, we like to dance, sing, tell stories, hunt, have feasts, play games like chess, checkers, and cards, and even play sports like archery, jousting, and soccer. For school, we have it way different than present day school. The reason that it's so much more different is because, first of all, you have to be rich to go to school. Second of all, because the school buildings are way different than regular school buildings. Instead of the school buildings that we have today, you would either go to a church to get taught or you would be tutored at your house. I wasn't able to attend school because I'm a girl, and girls don't usually get to go to school. For work, you would be forced to start working at the age of 12. Boys would either be sent away to military school or work long hours on their farm if they have one. Girls, on the other hand, have a safer but more boring job. We have to stay at home with our mom and do housework like cooking or cleaning. One last thing that we have to worry about are diseases. The reason that we have to worry about diseases so much is because if you get a disease, there's no medicine to cure it, so if you get a disease, you'll have a 50-50 chance of living or dying. With that, we conclude on the Dark Ages, the Dark Ages was a way harder time period to live in than the current day.
Thank you very much. Very proud of all of you that came up here and spoke. Great job.
Excellent job. Excellent job. Thank you so much, Mr. Slater, for bringing, and for the parents bringing in good weather, your students. It was a delightful day to be there because I did attend for part of the time, and it was, amazing. So thank you. You do not need to stay for the rest of our meeting. So I'll take a moment and let you guys take off. But thank you again. You guys did a great job.
Yes.
All right. It's the student reports. Nivea Avalos from Liberty High School.
Good evening, President Zeta, Superintendent Dr. Wright, fellow trustees, and cabinet members. On Monday, we submitted artwork to the Benicia Library Art Show. We had over 10 pieces submitted, and we want to thank our teacher, Ms. Sauter, for working with us and helping us with our submissions. The art exhibit opens up this upcoming Monday and runs through April. We want to congratulate our classmate, Michael Espinoza. He competed in the Solano Poetry Out Loud and received second place. We are very proud of him and appreciate how well he represented Liberty High School. On Wednesday, several students went to Cal Maritime Academy and toured their facilities. Students checked out several classrooms, simulators, and were able to board the Golden Bear, their training vessel. And working alongside Solano Community College, hope to establish a learning pipeline to their school. To honor Women's History Month, we are planning a trip to Point Richmond to visit the Rosie the Riveter Museum. We are looking forward to learning about the contribution made by those that worked on the home front and the roles women played in the success of our military. Due to the success of our participation in the Spinning Salmon Project, we have been invited to visit the UC Davis Center for Watershed Sciences Laboratory. We are going to see how our research is analyzed and applied. We want to thank Ms. Abano for creating this opportunity in connection with UC Davis that extended past the release of our little hatchlings. On behalf of Liberty High School, thank you.
It is so much happening. That's great. Okay, who wants to go first, Brianna or Jinjin?
You know we do it together.
Okay, Brianna Beniak is the ASB president of Benicia High School, and Jinjin Gao is the ASB vice president. So take it away, guys.
Good evening, President Zeta, Superintendent Dr. Wright, fellow trustees, and cabinet members. My name is Brianna Beniak, the ASB president, and
my name is Jinjin Gao, the ASB Vice President for Benicia High School. Last week, Friday, February 24th, we had our impressive and full audience improv show during lunchtime. Students show up for supports for some of the first-time performers. On Saturday, February 25th, we had our Lantern Festival Winter Dance. It was a success with hand from our chaperones and staff workers.
And this week, we had our intramural dodgeball tournament, which lasted all week. Tomorrow, we have our finals during lunch. Students were able to come in during lunch to stay warm from the rain while enjoying watching the tournaments. On Tuesday, the ASB packet was due for students who are interested in joining leadership next year. And yesterday, we hosted music in our schools at BHS at 6 p.m. in the gym, featuring elementary school, middle school, and high school band teams. Next week, Monday, March 6th, prom ticket sales begin, and on Wednesday, March 15th, ASB student leadership election voting begins. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Now, you're also welcome to skedaddle and take care of things that you need to take care of at home. Thank you. Thanks for updating us and being here tonight. Thanks. All right. We're going to move on to the superintendent report. Dr. Wright.
Good evening. So it's March, and March is Women's History Month. So I just want to share a couple of fun facts, prepare you for your next Jeopardy game. So before we had Women's History Month, we had Women's History Day back in 1909 is when it started. And then that transitioned into a recognition, a week-long recognition in 1978. And then in 1987, Women's History Month began. Also, Wyoming Territory was the first place to grant women the right to vote back in 1869, but it wasn't until 1965 that all women could legally vote. Not that long ago, right? Yeah. Eleanor Roosevelt held all-woman press conferences from 1933 to 1945. There were actually 348 press conferences for women reporters only. Marie Curie was the first woman to receive 2 Nobel Prizes. Aretha Franklin was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Sally Ride was the first woman in space. So now you're prepared for Jeopardy. We had a hiring fair last week. I want to thank Dr. Gill, Human Resources Department, our administrators, our teachers, staff members. It was an all hands on deck event. And we really had a great start to our recruitment season. 74 candidates attended this event. 32 were classified, 42 were certificated candidates. We conducted interviews on the spot, and we're currently working on hiring prospective candidates with the goal of starting the school year fully staffed. So the fact that it's just barely March and we're making progress on our hiring, it's a good feeling, and we're off to a great start. Understanding that we do have some additional fairs that we are attending in the Bay Area throughout the spring, and we'll make sure that we're fully staffed on day one. So thank you very much, Dr. Gill and your team and everyone that supported the event. I want to talk about vaping. We've been battling the harm caused by nicotine, tobacco, cigarettes for generations. This isn't a new issue. What used to be cigarettes evolved into vape pens. What's scary about these vape pens is that they're easy to conceal. They come in flavors, difficult to detect, and it's something that students can consume quickly and discreetly. And it's a problem. And I did some research, quick research yesterday, and I looked at a study from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, and they identified more than 2.5 million middle school and high school students reported using e-cigarettes. And 1 out of 4 of them use them daily. And in our district, we're not exempt from those statistics. Throughout this year, we fielded questions from students, concerns, I should say, from students and parents, and recently even gotten some social media attention. And we're aware of the issue. We're not intentionally allowing this to happen or turning a blind eye. I want to be very clear about that. In fact, it's an all hands on deck approach. We provide preventative education for students and families, their consequences for rule-breaking behaviors. We even have restorative practice in place to restore the harms that's caused. I want to talk about Benicia High School specifically. The campus supervisors at Benicia High School check the restrooms at least once per period, and they rotate through, more often during the snack period and lunch periods. And our administrators are also out there assisting with supervision, doing restroom checks during snack and lunch. Their consequences: students that are caught vaping or in possession of a vape pen, I'm talking about nicotine, the tobacco. For the first offense, they're assigned an educational module assignment to learn about the dangers of vaping. The parents are contacted, and they receive a warning for suspension if they're caught again. On a second offense, they'll receive a 1-day suspension. And if it continues, we use progressive discipline to address the situation. We also have vape detectors on our campuses. I'm not going to tell you exactly where, but we have some vape detectors on our campuses, and they have been proven to be effective thus far. Let's just say a student is in that area where that detector is, it alerts our administrator on their phone, and we've been able to catch students vaping. So I will say that we are trying some innovative strategies to address this issue. And our staff's receiving trainings as well. So we're employing a lot of resources to address the issues, but we understand that we've got to get creative and we have some more work to do. We're just asking our community just to partner with us. Trust our administrators when they pick up the phone and call you and say that there's a concern of vaping. Please trust our administrators that they're not targeting your child. They're just trying to target the issue that they're addressing. Sometimes advocating for your children means holding them accountable for their behavior. Talk to your students about the dangers of vaping and monitor their behaviors at home, and don't allow them to bring them to school if you see them. So let's partner. We've got a lot of work to do. We're going to set up some meetings to figure out where do we go from here, because right now we feel like we're doing quite a bit to address it, and we're obviously coming up short. Students under our jurisdiction during the school day, we want to make sure that they're safe and that people who are innocent bystanders feel comfortable roaming the campus as they please. So we have more work to do, but just partner with us and understand that we're working hard to address the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're on to board reports. Who would like to start?
I just have a brief update, and that's just that I was able to attend the Liberty High School Benicia Rotary Oversight Committee meeting. So that was a really good meeting. It was my first one, so I got to really hear like some of like just the wonderful partnership that Liberty has with the Rotary Club. So I'm really looking forward to the meetings to come and the different activities. And I'm not going to steal the principal's thunder. I'll let her share when she comes to the board meeting.
So I went to the facilities meeting on the 22nd of this month. It was my very first time. It was pretty fascinating. It was chaired by Ms. Egan and Mr. Rahill. Very informative. They did a review of Measure S funds and Prop 51 funds and what funds need district match. They talked about the millions of dollars that have been spent on our facilities since 2014. There was a very comprehensive document that was shared with me that hadn't been updated. It was from 2016, and Mrs. Egan assured us that an updated document will be out this summer with the 2023 dollar amounts for the projects that are still left to be done. We do have a number of leaks in our schools, but I haven't been updated on that. I was kind of curious as to how many leaking roofs that we have. But I was really happy to hear that the sewer issues at Robert Semple have been resolved, except for one small part. I also had the honor to go to the Matthew Turner 5th grade wax museum, which is always a delight. And I'd like to give a big shout out to those 5th graders and to the 5th grade teachers. It was so well done. And last but not least, I got to participate in the PTA PTG collaborative committee and heard what great things they're doing and what a collaborative group they are. It was so great to see all the PTG/PTA presidents or representatives talking with one another and talking about their schools and what they can do. They are doing great things, and there will be more information from them on their tasks in the future. But I was very honored to be included in that. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. That was a mouthful. Good job. Thank you for doing all that. Mr. Maselli, anything? Okay. I also was at the Wax Museum at Matthew Turner, and I learned about so many different subjects, whether it was, I did actually go to the Middle Ages, but I also learned about miniature horses and what else did I do? Miniature horses, penguins, journaling, hockey, and so much more. Golf. Just it was incredible, and it was so cute. They were just so excited to share, and they made great eye contact with me, and I really enjoyed my time spent there. So congratulations to those 5th graders. And also Dr. Moss and Dr. Wright and myself attended the first annual State of the City luncheon for Benicia, and the keynote speaker was Dr. Robert Eiler. He's an economic forensics and analytics guy, had a lot to say about a lot of things. He's also a professor of economics at the Sonoma State University. He presented current data on economic indicators specific to Benicia and the impacts for Benicia due to COVID-19 and what to watch for. It was a lot of good information I got from that. It was I think we don't have, I was worried before he started talking, and it kind of calmed my nerves. And that's it. So that's it for board reports. So we're going to go to comments from members of the public. Members of the public may address the board at a regular scheduled meeting on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Speaker cards are available on the entrance table. Please note the item you wish to speak to and submit a card to the board secretary. The board president will call an open session general comments during the public comment time. Comments for items on the agenda will be called during a specific item. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, or the board may limit the total time to 20 minutes per item with the timer displayed on the monitors. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Please be reminded to keep your comments respectful, as students may be watching the board meeting. Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 11. Background, this is the consent calendar. So background information on the items provided to the board prior to the meeting. A common motion takes place without discussion on roll call unless discussion of items is requested by a board member. Okay, so can I get an approval of the consent calendar as written?
I move that we approve the consent calendar as written.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs. Yes. Trustee Moss. And Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
Okay, and I believe I need to recognize two.
It would be nice, yes.
Okay, I would love to recognize the Kiwanis Club of Benicia for their generous donation to the to Benicia High School's debate team of $500. Thank you so much. Yes, deserves a round of applause. And next, Turlock Oral and I don't know that word. Maxillofacial surgery, sorry if I messed that up, for their generous donation of $2,000 to the Benicia High School swim team. Thank you both for donating. We really appreciate it. All right. So moving on. Guess who's up? Dr. Beatson. Strategic plan, LCAP update.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, President Zeta, board. I wanted to just give you a very quick and brief overview of our progress on our development of our strategic plan. So tonight, I really want to remind us of the major funding sources that are underwriting many of the actions and services inside of the plan, and some of the stakeholder engagement feedback that we've collected so far. As always, I always start with our district's mission and vision because it's grounding all the work that we do, as well as our district's equity statement. And that you can find that ribbons through all 4 of our LCAP goals. And remember, the LCAP is a 3-year plan. We are currently in year 2 of this particular LCAP. We have 4 goals: social emotional learning and sense of belonging, literacy and humanities, math and STEAM, and equity and opportunity. Even though equity and opportunity, if you read the detail behind those goals, is ribboned throughout all of them. This slide, I think you've seen before. It really just calls out some of the major actions and services inside of each of those 4 goals. And this slide I want to pause on for just a minute, because if you remember back to 2020, we started receiving one-time grant funding from the state of California and some federal dollars as well. They were one-time in nature, and they rolled pretty fast to us over the course of several months. Most of them had very specific categories of things that you could spend the money on. They were specific yet broad, if that makes sense, and many of them were overlapping. And I want to really thank Mr. Rahill, because we've worked really hard to lay those one-time dollars side by side so that we could stretch them out as long as possible instead of spending them all right away. And we're in that process currently. The total amount is almost $14 million in those one-time grants that have come in. They each have different, like I said, spending guidelines and spending deadlines. And so we're on track for spending those funds. And again, we've been able to really work hard to stretch them so that we can continue the implementation of these actions and services. And one of the things that we made a decision to do, and I remember talking with the board about it back in 2020 as we were developing the LCAP, was we used these funds to fund one-time positions. So typically when you have one-time funding, we don't spend it on staffing because it's one-time in nature, and then you would have to have a temporary positions. But so much of this dollar was coming to us, we needed to do that. And we have some great results because of that. New information, we don't have any detail on it yet, but there are more one-time funds coming in these particular categories. We have not received, as I said, how much or what detail is behind them. I don't know yet, but I wanted you to know we're anticipating some additional, probably one-time funding in these categories around literacy coaches and reading specialists. I don't know if that's going to be for particular school sites. We've only seen the big high-level detail of that. There's something around 12th grade cultural enrichment on a field trip. There's something on education around opioid overdose reversal. And then this last one on here, Prop 28, music and arts, that was not going to be one-time funding. That is ongoing funding. It was passed at the last election for tax dollars.
Are these state or federal?
Those are all state funding, correct?
I'm just curious.
Yep, I believe they're all state. Yeah. Yeah, but I think the rest are state, but there really has just been some real high-level information of just about statewide, like how much the money is in the state level bucket, but we haven't seen any detail on that, so. Yep. Part of the LCAP process is to collect feedback from our stakeholder groups, and there's lots of different groups, so staff and students, parents, we have to work with our SELPA. And so, as I said, we're in year 2 of this current strategic plan, and we did our engagement surveys differently this year. We feel pretty lucky because one of our parents that's on our El Capitans group works for Kaiser, and she does all the she does all the surveying for Kaiser, and so has a real expertise in that niche. So she talked about helping us really make sure that the surveys were simple enough, short enough for people to do them. And then she talked about this thing called pulse survey. So we did one kind of overall program survey, and then we did 4 actual pulse surveys, which were very specific. So we wanted to find out information about wellness centers, because that was a big ticket item paid with one-time dollars in our LCAP. And so the survey went something like, does your child visit the wellness center? If you answer no, it says thank you for taking the survey. If it says yes, there's 2 more questions that pop up. And so it was the similar kind of surveys for staff and students as well. So we did those for the key services, intervention, counseling, and wellness, and then I just did an overall satisfaction one. In addition to that, and we're currently still doing this, we at our last LCAP meeting, we looked at our data that was in progress, and we noticed we had a couple schools and a couple student groups that we weren't really hearing from. And so we're working to try to ensure that we do some personal phone calls and outreach to those families. And so that's happening. And I'm continuing to work with our site admin to make sure that we get those voices heard. And then we also look at our data, because that's another piece of how we know if these services are effective. So we put all of that information together. So what I want to do is just quickly take you through the results of what we have so far. So the first one was on wellness. And again, the question is really, do you believe it's making a positive difference for your student? You can see how many responses we have received. The data tells us that, yes, people are accessing our wellness center. They feel like it is making a positive difference. And I think the data point I want to really highlight, our county, because our county helped provide the grant for us to establish these wellness centers. They send monthly reports about how many students are entering, why they're coming, what time of day they're coming, how they feel after their visit, what kind of activity they did while they were there. So we get these reports every month. 94% of students across our district from September to January, that culminating report, said that they had improved feelings after visiting the wellness center. And so I think that is pretty telling in terms of the power of that position. So that helps inform, along with the feedback from our staff and our parents, that is an action that we would likely continue into the next year. That makes sense. No, that's 402 people responded to the survey. 48 said yes. So remember, I said the first question is, does your child use it? So many of those families are saying no. So, and what we also know by the data is many of the students are the same students that are going into the wellness center. So 148 of those 402 said, yes, my child has used it, and then responded to those questions. Yep, and you're going to see that sort of data in the next couple of slides as well. This one I know is super tiny up there. I apologize for that. So another big expenditure in our LCAP is around intervention. And so we expanded our intervention services. We know it's still probably not enough for closing the gap and what we need, but I want to highlight the 3 different kinds of intervention that we have on this screen. One is reading intervention at the elementary school. And so we have both certificated teachers at every site. We have a part-time intervention teacher that's paid from one-time dollars at Matthew Turner Elementary School. We have 2 intervention teachers at Robert Semple, our Title I school, 1 full-time at Mary Farmer and 1 at Joe Henderson. And they service students primarily in the primary grades in very targeted reading intervention. Along with them, we have intervention tutors. So they're classified staff that are trained in very specific programs. They work with our teachers, and Mrs. Rice oversees that program. And you can see our responses to the survey. And then I want to talk just a minute about the data, and I'll kind of share this for all the different services and then answer any questions that you have. So one of the ways that we monitor the effectiveness of our program is by looking at the NWEA data. And if you remember, NWEA is an online assessment. It's pretty rigorous. It's very much aligned with how students will perform on the CASP, the state test. I think I shared that data with you at an earlier meeting. And there's 2 ways to read that data. One is if students meet standard. Another piece that's even more powerful in my opinion than that is growth, because we know that we have a huge gap. And yes, we want all students to be reading at standard, but we also want to see them growing. And so what is presented on your slide here is their growth data. So those students that took the assessment in September, right after school started, and then they took another winter assessment. And so we looked at the students who were receiving reading intervention in our elementary school, and we looked at their growth. The other piece about this is all students, when they take this, have a target goal of how much you need to grow. And so a student who is a lower performing has a growth target that's pretty big, because we need to close that gap. Where a student who's really high performing may only have to increase a couple of points to meet their growth target. It's sort of like, I always think of it as like, if you want to diet and you set, I want to lose 10 pounds, well, I might only lose 8, but I've lost. In this case, you'd grow. Or reading. So does that make sense? So if you look at the student growth data in that first row, you can see that between about 71% and 89% of our students that received intervention services in reading for the first half of the year, that percentage of them met or exceeded what their growth target was supposed to be. Doesn't mean they're at level, but right? And then down at the bottom, there's a note. That very first bulleted note says, an average of 80% of the students in reading intervention met or exceeded their growth target where they wanted to be, compared to 40% of the students that aren't in. So 40% of students not receiving the service met their growth target, but about 80% on average of the students receiving intervention received that target. Does that make sense? It's a lot of numbers and a lot of words. And so what that tells us is we're closing the gap, right? Because the students not in have less to grow than the students who are in. And when they grow twice as fast, we're closing that gap, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's how we read the whole rest of this chart as well. So I won't go into that much detail for the rest, but you can see we started math. Same thing, we have only reading, not reading tutors, math assistants, so classified math. We only have 2 people, and they started only about 6 weeks ago, I believe, doing some math intervention in 3rd through 5th grade, primarily at 3rd grade, because that's where, when we looked at the data of where are the kids really struggling. And again, with just a short amount of time, you can see that they are meeting their many of them are meeting and exceeding their growth target and at higher rates than students who are not. The third row is one of the other big ticket items in our LCAP this year was to provide a certificated teacher to offer direct service to our English learners. And so Mrs. Strassner is that person this year, and she is providing one-to-one or small group instruction for our EL students who are, we say, a 1 or a 2. So there's the EL test that they have to take. They have to get a 4 on it, the highest score in reading, a 4 in writing, a 4 in listening, and a 4 in speaking, in order to be reclassified as English proficient. And so she's serving kids that are 1s and 2s in those areas. And you can see that 86% of them have met or exceeded their growth target. And students who are not receiving those EL services, so they might be a 3 or a 4, so they're not, or they're a 3, they're not getting our cutoff, compared to 32% of those students. So we compared like students to like students. And then again, at the secondary level, we have an EL section. So the students can take an EL course at Benicia Middle School or Benicia High School. We can't force them to, but we really encourage parents of our English learners to enroll in that class, and that class is, they're making progress in that class as well. Sorry, that was a whole lot on this slide, but there was a lot of information. You're welcome. Another one of our pulse surveys was on counseling, because we added counseling at our elementary school, and you can see great responses. It's working. People love that program. Their downfall, what the feedback I got was, we want more, right? We want to give this a high rating, but we don't want you to think that that's enough, basically. And so summary of all of that stakeholder feedback is on this slide. Keep it going, keep the intervention going. We need more services. A couple things that we need to work on is communication between the service provider and the classroom teacher. So that was great feedback for us. Scheduling is always tricky when you're a classroom teacher and students are getting pulled out of your classroom for extra service. They're missing something. So that's been a struggle. We need to continue to do some more training for our general education teachers around EL strategies and supporting EL learners in the classroom. Science of reading for our primary grades. I'm really happy to say we've started to provide that this year. We have over 30 primary grade teachers taking a 12-week online course offered by the CDE in the science of reading, and that's happening every Friday. More counseling is needed, more communication between services and counselors, and so that's the feedback on there. Any other questions on this? Fabulous. And then, I know I'm almost done, I promise. This is preliminary. This particular survey is still open until tomorrow. So families, if you're watching and you have not yet filled out this last survey, please do so. It is really just a couple questions. One question, which is, how satisfied are you with Benicia Unified School District? I realized I should have put this on the overall program survey, and I was updating the LCAP and realized I forgot that question, so I sent out another one. Currently, we are 81.4% of people saying they are satisfied or very satisfied with us, and then you can see down in the bottom, we've gone from 55%, and that was over the pandemic, so we understand that, to 72% to 81%. So we are heading in the right direction. Well, we have about 4,500 students. I'd say even if we said half of that, so we have a lot of families that are not filling this out, and I'll push it out again before it closes. We try, right? So, right. And there is a number, and I'll have to get it for you, of when you have a certain amount of people filling out a survey, even when there's additional people, it doesn't really change the results. And I can't remember exactly what that number is. We talked about it in the LCAP meeting, like we should be having X amount of people filling it out, and I can't remember what that percentage is. And then based on this, and, you know, we're going to continue to talk in our LCAP meetings and look for any additional parent feedback, but we will be able to continue these services into next year's LCAP. And then, thank you, Ms. Zeta. I went back and looked on the slides and I went, I didn't realize I had so many acronyms on there. And so thank you for asking.
Appreciate that that's there. And that's to help families at home that are looking through our documentation about the meetings, because in education, there is so many acronyms, so many, that I thought this would be helpful on every time we're using the acronyms, that we put a page in there just outlining what they mean. And if you have additional questions, then you can go knowledgeably to staff at the school or whatever and ask what that means if you have any questions.
Well, thank you, because I hadn't.
Thank you.
I didn't realize there was that many in
Thank
there.
you,
until I went
thank
back.
you.
And no, that was all I had. What questions do you have?
On the noon duty supervision, hours, were we trying to like combine positions? It's hard to probably get people to do that. Somebody a couple hours.
Right.
How are we doing? I mean, is there a way to make that more effective?
Well, what we're currently doing in this LCAP is at the elementary school, the position is about, I think, an hour and a half in the middle of the day for noon duty supervision. But then we've added, through the LCAP, we've added some additional hours so that I think we've filled most of those positions.
We were talking about combining, and we came up with some additional obstacles that we didn't think about when we initiated it. So we were hard pressed to make it happen. Finding people who are available to do it and willing to do it with the flexibility of taking our own children to school, it became complicated.
All right, Dr. Beatson, excellent, thank you. And we are going to move on to our item number 13. First up's the governing board review and the award of the federal E-rate bid for network electronics to a low bidder. And I'm going to ask Mr. Rayhill and Mr. Lambert to join us, or to share, I don't know what that laugh was, but to share information about this so we can be well informed.
Good evening, everyone. We do have this item for your review and award of this bid tonight. Our district qualifies and participates in the federal E-rate program, and that provides matching funds to purchase network electronics. Our district provides this bid for 44 network switches to help ensure fast and reliable network internet services throughout the district, and has an estimated useful life of 7 years. So this federal E-rate program that we qualify for will provide half of the project costs, or $159,575, and the district will cover the other half of that project, the other $159,000, with one-time funds. And we went out to bid and complied with all the procurement bidding rules, and are asking the board tonight to award this federal E-rate bid for network electronics to the low bidder, which is Portola Systems, in the total amount of $319,150.
Okay. Can I just ask a quick question? What was I going to say? Do we normally just go out for 2 bids? Do we ever go out for a 3rd bid for comparison of prices?
So we we've put this out to bid to the public, and we.
So it's who came
whoever
back.
comes, and
Never mind. That answered the question. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? So we're ready to go on this. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve the federal E-rate bid for network electronics to Portola Systems.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Martinez.
Yes. President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Gross. Yes. Trustee Moss. Yes. And Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Tim. We're going to move on to B, Governing Board Review and Approval of the 2022-23 second interim financial report for the BUSD school district, or that is the school district. Again, you are ready to be reporting back to us.
Good evening again. And yeah, we have our second interim financial report for your review and approval tonight. We presented the first interim financial report back in December. And basically, we bring that forward to the second interim. It does provide, as required, the state's minimum 3% reserve plus the local board policy reserve on the 1 month of payroll. It is providing for the positive certification for this second interim financial report. In the packet, we've included the same information that we had in the first interim packet from back in December. And I just start with the biggest change between the first interim and the second interim is we got our finalized new state one-time grant amounts. So in the 22-23 year, Governor Newsom, through the budget, provided school districts with an additional round of one-time funds. So we got those final dollar amounts, which we had been expecting and are counting on those and have been planning on those for the continuance of our LCAP kind of rolling multi-year plan. And so our district's path has been to utilize one-time funds as they are made available to continue our LCAP into not just for 1 year, but for the following few years. And so the addition of those new one-time grants amounts to $4.1 million. And if you look at our LCAP plan, we're in the neighborhood of about $2.2 to $2.3 million in annual LCAP programs. And so those new dollars would, along with some other LCAP carryover funds, would provide for at least about 2 years of doing what we're currently doing. Okay. So that gives you some assurance to continue into the future, which has been the best that we, I think, are doing with given the information that we have from the state. Dr. Beetson mentioned, working together and just making the dollars stretch. It is a lot of money to try to spend in 1 year, and so we feel like putting together a LCAP plan to spread those dollars out over several years have been able to continue some of the programs that Dr. Beetson mentioned over several years. So I will go through. Why don't I go through the slides? They're the same packet. If you want me to skip over some, there's a lot in here. The FTE ones are pretty much the same as the first interim. But I'll go through the summary slides, and then I'll continue if you guys would like me to go into further detail.
Yeah, just on the first slide, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
Can you walk me through the number 3 in terms of the attendance?
Yes.
So I don't quite grasp everything there on the 22-23 school year.
Yeah. So what we do up on the very first line, so in 22-23, our student enrollment in CalPads, every school district, we look at, we do an official count in October. And so you compare that from October to October. And so we're really flat on enrollment. We were expecting a dip in enrollment, but that actually came in a little bit higher when the kids actually came in August. So that's a good thing. On the enrollment side, we don't get funded on enrollment. We get funded on attendance.
ADA, right?
And so the state has implemented, we used to get funded based on current attendance or prior year attendance. And then during the COVID years, they implemented yet another way to get funded on the average of the prior 3 years. So there's another calculation you get to go through, fortunately for the Benicia School District, because that does benefit us to spread out that reduction over 3 years is kind of the intent there. And so in that first column, basically what we look at in the middle columns are adjustments to our ADA. And if you plug in the numbers for our attendance for the current year and the prior two, it's a reduction of 92.3.
What's the number above where it says using current year, prior year, 3 prior year, 155.97?
Yeah,
I know
so-
that's the only non-negative, but I was curious about that number.
Yeah. So you know what? I think let me go back. It's I know that the 92 is the net number, but I'm trying to remember exactly how to explain that to get down to that
no worries.
92.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I'll put that out next
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
So, but it's a way to show you if we had just done it based on hold harmless for 1 year, and then when they implemented the new 3 prior year, it changed the number. I think that was the benefit we got. That 155 number might be the benefit we got from converting to the 3 prior year. So it was significant. But let me confirm that for you.
If you look in the 23, 24, 24, 25, it seems like adding the prior student year average daily attendance to the current year on the other 3 years, you know, the numbers, if you add them together, the 7 plus negative 126 is negative 119, and same with the other 2 years. So I was wondering, the math in the out years, the math didn't really click with the math on the current year, but I know there's rules and things that I don't understand, so I was just curious.
Yeah, based on the states, the state has the school districts do an LCFF calculator, and so you put in your current ADA and your prior ADA, and based on that formula, I've indicated that in the current year we benefit from the 3 prior year example.
Right.
Next year, the 3 prior year example. But in the
Prior year.
24-25, it's just the single prior year. And then should we kind of balance out here, and we would get back to current year in 25-26. But that's a big if. That's we've got a few years to see if that's going to stick.
Who knows what's, you know. Thank you.
On the next slide, we're just, there was one before that, but there's one in there, just a slide with a lot of numbers on it to remind us that we monitor our STRS and PERS retirement costs. And STRS is kind of locked in right now from an employer STRS contribution. Unfortunately, the last round with PERS saw some more increases to the employer rate. And so we had to factor in some additional PERS cost in our budgets. We go to the next slide with our revenues at $64.7 million. I wanted to point out, and it was big enough increase in our state revenues. I wanted to create a new line for our state new one-time monies in parentheses, which we're planning to use for the LCAP. Of $4,293,000, and so that was the big difference from first interim report. On the next slide, in our expenses, this probably changed slightly, but one of the things that we're not doing this year, we're not spending those new state time ones, that $4,200,000. We're counting on having that in a carryover so that we can use our LCAP, identify the uses for that, and then spend it over the next couple of years. After that, we have a series of FTE slides. I'll just do this top one, which again hasn't changed since first interim. When we talk about staffing, we talk about FTE or full-time equivalents of what one full-time person would be in our district, currently at about 469 full-time equivalent staff for teachers, certificated, classified, And we do operate other funds, food service and childcare. Those are the ones that have some staffing in them as well. I don't think I'll go through the detail pages, which are there, but if there are any questions, we can do that. We can skip to the next pie chart, which starts with the employee benefits. Again, these were in the first interim packet, and we'll just remind ourselves that our district employees, anywhere between 85 to 90% of staff, and here's the different categories of the employee benefits we provide with retirements, Social Security, for some classified folks, Medicare, the health benefits, some dental workers' comp, and some retirees. The next slide with $2.5 million for supplies and equipment, instructional materials, books. We take care of our schools' custodial maintenance and grounds, and then continue to invest in computers and technology as well in our district. The next group, the next pie chart at $7.1 million on services and capital outlay. About half of that in that blue chart is professional services, and the next series of pie charts kind of continue to break that down. But you can see, other than that, there's utilities, insurance, and some of our network switches and solar loans are in there. Again, I'm just highlighting the bigger ones on these pie charts. On the next slide, we peel away that onion. These costs were part of the general category of professional services of $3.3 million. So this isn't in addition to the last slide. It attempts to break down that big chunk on the last slide. And again, we're peeling the onion back. There's a $2 million piece here for school program services that we'll look at in a moment. But this shows you that there's software and legal. We have our school resource officer in there and some special ed transportation as well. And I believe this last slide of services peels away that last piece of that $2 million chunk, and about half of that is for special ed services and our after-school ELOP program at almost $500,000 on that piece. So after all of our revenues, we talked about our FTE a little bit and kind of flipped through somewhat quickly there on our expenditure pie charts. We have the funds that are left in our fund balance on the next slide. And we're at 16.8 million, which if you compare that to first interim, it's going to be significantly higher. And it's basically due to those new state one-time grants of 4.1 million that's added here. So again, having them identified on a separate line, showing our intent to use them for LCAP over the next several years. We wanted to, on the next slide, give you a little bit more detail. That pie chart has the big numbers. This next page shows the main categories of the restricted programs and our carryovers. Last time during the first interim, we added the next few slides, and I believe we had our directors come and give a short presentation. And we wanted just to keep those as part of our conversation to remind us of our different needs. And we have our technology refresh needs, our student Chromebooks, our staffing computers, what you approved a little bit earlier with networks switches to make sure everything runs safely and quickly and efficiently. And so there's some significant dollars there that we just want to remind ourselves that that's always important for us to take care of our technology. The next one was curriculum.
The startup needs, Is that like new stuff as opposed to replacing on the refresh stuff?
Yeah, in talking with our director of technology, who is doing his outreach to the school sites and talking with staff and administrators, just to kind of get up to speed. In addition to the annual refresh, in regards to staff computers, our PA system and dock cameras. We did get a quote on staff computers, so we just got that back. So we'll be taking a closer look at that and bring that back to you. We got a lease option this time, so we want to look at that a little bit closer. What's nice about that is it doesn't hit your budget all at once with a big number, and then there's also some safeties things that are built in there in regards to if they break or get damaged. There's some clauses if you lease to get them fixed and get new ones under certain circumstances. Okay. So we can bring that back to you at a future school board meeting.
Thank you.
Books and curriculum adoptions on the next slide. Lots of money. It's a book these days is very expensive, and the adoptions happen ever so often. And this is our best guess. These numbers will change, but it just again wants to give you an idea of what will be happening over the next years in regards to the different subject matters and being prepared for that.
The supplemental K-12, are those consumables? I'm sorry if it's a random question. I just...
Not at all. Many of them are online programs. Some of them are consumables, but most of them are online.
That you have to re-up it. It's not like buying a book where you have it. It's
subscription. Everything comes
yearly.
With, even a hardback book now comes with a subscription that you have to buy because there's an online component to it.
Thank you.
Yep.
The next slide on our bond and state facility projects, our board member, Ms. Grubbs, let us know we got our facility steering committee back together. And so we're diving into the detail that's on these page about our Measure S bonds and the efforts that the district have done to get state matching funds to use up those funds for facility projects throughout the district. Our facility master plan is dated from back in 2016. Back then, it said we needed 136 million. But when you go out to a bond, you do what the local voters will pass. And so we got the 49.6 million one. We went after some additional state Prop 51 funds, at this point about 11.3 million. But we're getting, those are fully committed and will be fully spent out. So some of the conversations that we'll be having with the board, we'll be having it with the committee, is what does the district do? What are some of the options, including, having a conversation about potentially other local fundings through a local bond. And there's a process to go through for that, community input for that. So a school district in California can go out for bonds in even numbered years. So the next time that our district or any district in California can do that would be next year in 2024. So more to come on that. And then in addition to building things, constructing things through the bond and facility funds, we have to take care of them. And so we put together a 5-year deferred maintenance plan. This is just the summary sheet of it. I believe, yeah, there's detail behind each one of our school sites in regards to those needs. They break them out into major maintenance categories like leaky roofs, like plumbing, like electrical. And so I know our crew is working on that list of the current leaky roofs so that we can report back to you guys and let you know how they're going to tackle those, in addition to all the other maintenance type stuff, HVAC, flooring, all that kind of stuff. Bathrooms, yeah. So after all of that, we summarize our operating deficits over the current and into the future years, along with showing for the current and following 2 years, the district's ability to pay its bills and stay positive with the 3% reserve. And we are able to do that given the governor's current proposal. He came out in January with his budget proposal, and so we've incorporated that information into 23-24 and the outer years. The final few pages in here, they're in your packet. It's just reminders on why districts maintain reserves to cover uncertainties, and there's a long list there. And then the last graphic chart charts our financial position over the many years, all the way back to 2008-09. And so as we come to the end of the presentation, our next steps after approval by the school board is filing it with our Solano County Office of Education and the State of California Department of Ed. Here we are in March 2nd. Just in a couple months, in May, Governor Newsom comes out with his Governor's May revised budget. So he came out in January and said, this is what I think's going to happen in the 23-24 school year or the 23-24 fiscal year. And in May, after 4 or 5 months go by, he updates all of his numbers to see if tax revenues are on track and spending and all that good stuff. So we will pay close attention between now and then and wait to hear what Governor Newsom and the state of California brings forward in regards to a state budget for 23-24. And then that's what we use to bring you our school budget for 23-24 at the end of May and in June.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we got a lot of them answered in between as Mr. Rahal was going over everything. So, and I get a motion.
I'll move that we approve the second interim financial report.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Martinez.
Yes, President Seda.
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs. Trustee Moss. Yes. Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Rahal.
Thank you so much. Next item is consideration and approval of resolution number 22-23-11. And Dr. Gill, you're up.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Wright, and cabinet and community members. So this is a temporary position, similar to what we had last time. We had just one additional position that we need to bring forward. We needed to complete more paperwork on it. That's why it wasn't in last board meeting's agenda. So
thank you. All right. Any questions? No? Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve resolution 22-23-11.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Seda.
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Trustee Moss. And Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, it is 7:29. I want to thank everybody for being here in this room and whoever came earlier and participated, and everybody at home for watching, and let you all know that our next meeting is Thursday, March 23rd. So we will see you then. Thank you. Have a good night.